Hello and welcome to another Star Wars Destiny video. It's been a little bit, and I have some updates. So the first one is that I'm now going to be writing some content for StarWarsDestiny.com. I actually have my first article posted there already, so I believe I'll link it in the description of this video if you want to go read it. Second, I've just been a little bit busy recently because real life things, namely planning a wedding. But I'm going to try to get out some more videos than I have been doing. And that's just going to be some time management issues that I have to deal with. And also, I'm going to be making the Phasma video soon, the Phasma Battle Trooper. And then after that, I'll need to play another deck. So if you have a request for which deck I play next, feel free to go ahead and post that. And if you have any questions, I might do a Q&A video sometime soon where you just ask questions about the game and I answer them to the best of my ability. But without further ado, I'm going to get into a strategy video, or more of a card analysis video, I guess, talking about the weaknesses, the inherent weaknesses of control dice. And I kind of have the stereotypical 3 control dice here. That are all extremely good cards. Don't get me wrong. In fact, a lot of people, if you ask them what's the best card in the game, would tell you it's Force Throw. I would disagree. I think it's incredibly strong, but there are more and more factors that as I play, I realize I don't really like it that much. It just feels bad too often. And the problem that all 3 of these cards really struggle with is they need to roll their special early for it to be good. They have a 1/3 odds of getting it, which is pretty decent, right? But at the same time, 2 out of every 3 turns, you're not going to roll it on your first roll. And then out of 2 rolls, you're not even guaranteed to get it on the special. It's not that great of odds. It's somewhere around 50%. I'm not going to do the actual math. So you're looking at, after 2 rolls, you might not even have the special. And at that point, if you miss the special 2 rolls in a row, the card has basically become, well, the die has basically become useless. The reason for that being, obviously, your opponent is doing actions and resolving dice while you're trying to roll, these specials. So if I roll out a Force Throw and I hit the Disrupt side first, and then I discard it, you roll out, right? And then I discard a card, re-roll, and get something other than the special, and then you can discard and reroll again. Like, by that time, the odds of me rerolling into a special and still having something on the board to throw that's significant is very low, because your opponent knows that you're playing a Force Throw and it isn't going to sit there and reroll all of his dice with high values all day. He's going to resolve them as fast as he can. So you're running into this issue where at the end of the turn, you could be sitting there with 3 cards in your hand and several dice on the board, well able to, re-roll, and which is something that you need to do in this game if you want to win, is re-roll as much as you can when you have these dice on the board to get as much value out of them. But when you re-roll control cards at the end of the round, they do like nothing. Your opponents have already resolved their dice, and their value, if you look at their cards, that if your opponent has no dice, Force Throw essentially has 3 blanks, right? If your opponent has no resources, it has 5 blanks, right? Unless you have your own dice that you can throw, but that's really not that great. It's not the point of the card, right? And then you have this 1 damage, right? Force Choke, similarly, if you don't have a die that you need to control for your opponent, you have 2 sides that just deal 1 damage, which, it's not that bad, but at the same time, to not get its effect, it just really weakens the card. And then you look at On the Hunt, right? It can still remove shields, obviously, but if your opponent doesn't have shields, doesn't have dice, that's 2 more blank sides, right? So as I've played, and as the more and more games I get in, the more and more games where I run into the problem where I just didn't roll my Force Throw on special, right? I got, a Holocron on Django, I roll out the Force Throw die, and 2-3 turns in a row, I just get no usage out of it, because by the time I do reroll into special, my opponent's already resolved his best die. And yes, that doesn't happen every game, but it happens a lot more than I'm comfortable with. There's still really good cards. They'll completely shut down an opponent's turn if you like roll out a force throw and they can't remove it. But at the same time, to have a 3-cost upgrade, it's not doing a lot of work, right? That like on a single turn basically does nothing. It's a big problem. And as that has happened more and more, I've become, I don't know, I've begun to favor just weapon upgrades more and more. And there are reasons for this, which I'll get over. So if we look at like a 1-cost upgrade that I could have instead of On the Hunt, you're looking at something like a DH-17 or maybe a promotion, right? And a DH-17 has 2 blanks, and it has 3 damage sides and a shield. And the best thing about the DH-17 over the On the Hunt is that if I'm in this reroll situation where I'm rolling poorly with it, the 1 and the 2 damage, and even the +2, and even the shield, they're all good to reroll on your 3rd or 4th reroll, right? They're still good at the end of your turn after your opponent's already claimed. A promotion, similarly, still has a focus. It has, the +1 range. The +1 melee usually isn't going to be resolved. So it has 2 blanks, but it has 4 useful sides, right? Where even at the end of the turn, if I had bad rolls, I can still reroll and get something useful out of it. Which, in a lot of gun decks, that's what you're doing at the end of your turn. You're just discarding, you're rerolling, and you're dealing lots of damage. It's a lot more consistent where if I roll poorly, I can fix that, right? Or if I roll poorly on the Hunt, I can't fix that. It's not going to reroll into something good once my opponent has resolved his dice. Similarly down here, Raised Staff. All 5 sides, well, the special isn't as good at the end. It's the same deal where it removes damage. But the other 4 sides there are good, right? Regardless of when you roll them in the turn, they still deal their damage. That still gives you a resource, right? Hold Up Blaster, same deal. Regardless of when you roll it in your turn, it's still useful. F11D, still useful. And this is why I've also begun to favor Immobilize more over Force Choke, right? Where Immobilize, if I re-roll it, right, I can take those shields at any point in the turn. I don't need it at the beginning of my turn. Also, I don't have to rely on rolling a special to be able to control my dice. As soon as I've rolled out an Immobilize, I can always use it, right? I'm not getting the damage out of it, but everything else is the same, and it's better to reroll at the end of the turn, right? Whereas at the end of the turn with a Force Choke, I'm rerolling with, essentially nothing useful, right? The 1 discard, who really cares at the end of an opponent's turn? The 2 disrupt, they probably already reused the resources for their turn, and then 1 resource is useful, and then 2 1 damages. They're just not it's just not enough, right? Same thing with the Force Throw, right? Where if I'm at the end of a turn and I'm rerolling a Force Throw, it's not going to do a whole lot. But if you look at a Saber, anytime I reroll one of its 3 damage sides, it's useful. Anytime I reroll one of the 3 damage sides on a Heavy Blaster, it's useful. And I know I've been saying the same thing over and over again, but that's because I think it's an important point to realize that when you're analyzing how good a dice is, you need to analyze how often that dice is useful, right? And control dice are naturally going to be useful less often because it's reliant on you rolling them before your opponent has resolved their dice. Weapons don't rely on that. They're just dealing damage. Another thing to note that also, in my mind, has raised the value of weapons over control is weapons enable your character dice, right? So if you're playing a character like Rey, Rey's staff enables her +2 side, right? Same deal, where I could have an On the Hunt on a Balatique, or I could have a DH-17, and a DH-17 enables that +2 side on Bala to actually be useful. And this effect compounds to the point where once you get 3 of a weapon, 3 of a damage type on a character, 3 of those upgrades, they're much less likely to roll out and not have black. In fact, usually once you have 3 upgrades on a character, they're going to be rolling 2 black sides. Rather easy. And that's a huge boon. Whereas control cards don't help your character dice. They don't enable your character dice, right? And this has made me more and more at the end of the game, when I have a Ray out there, I want to have a Ray with a Ray staff and 2 lightsabers, not a Ray with 2 force throws. Because a Ray with 2 force throws, if I miss both those force throws when I roll, it's useless. it's so bad, right? If I discard again and reroll and I don't get them again, it's like the worst feeling in the world, because now those dice aren't doing anything. The sabers, I'm just like, well, I guess I'll reroll, and eventually I get the damage on them. I found that it's much more consistently you close the game when you have upgrades that like a saber versus upgrades like a force throw. Now there are always exceptions to this, right? Force throw wins games, I get it, but you have to roll the special, right? And that's a weakness, an inherent weakness to the card. And this, I'll just note this other card out here that has that same issue, where Mind Probe has the special, which becomes worse and worse as the game progresses. Or, I mean, as the turn progresses, because they use more and more of the cards. And the Disrupt gets worse and worse, typically, because your opponent typically uses their resources before they end their turn. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they end with claiming resources, then that's a useful side. But potentially, they have less cards, less resources, and at the end of the turn, which means that you have 5 blanks, potentially. And as I've played a deck like Kylo Jango, right, and I get these insane cards like a Force Throw and a Mind Probe on Jango, and then every turn, or like 2 turns in a row, right after I get those cards, these key important early game turns, when I roll out the Jango, it's like, oh, I got the 2 Disrupt side on the Mind Probe and the 1 Disrupt side on the Force Throw, right? I'll discard and reroll, right? Same thing, right? Where maybe I get a blank on one and the 2 Disrupt on the Force Throw, right? And I'm just sitting there like, well, crap, right? I guess I'll get it next turn. Comes to next turn, same thing happens, right? And then at that point, to not get any value out of those cards for 2 turns is just devastating. And the more I play, the more I want my cards to be as consistent as possible. I don't want to lose because of dice rolls, right? I want to mitigate luck in my deck. And I've found that control cards are inherently more prone to the luck of the die roll, because rerolls aren't as effective on them. Rerolls is a great way for the game to be like, okay, you rolled poorly, well, you can just reroll the dice, right? And sure, it kind of sucks every time you roll bad, but you can mitigate that by being able to reroll them, and I think it's a great mechanic in this game. Cards like Mind Probe, Force Throw, Force Choke, On the Hunt are not as good at rerolling, which means that they're going to be inherently more luck-based. I don't like that in my deck. I still run these cards. Obviously, they're still great cards, but their estimation, how high I would rank them on a list of great upgrades, is lowering the more and more I play. Whereas a card like Raise Staff and Immobilize, like I would take an Immobilize over a Force Choke almost any day, just because I feel like it's more useful at controlling. It's just more reliable. I'd take a Raise Staff over having like a Force Throw on Ray even. It's 1 cheaper. It still has a defensive die, and it has these 3 black melee sides, which makes Ray's dice so much better, right? So the more I play, even though Force Throw is an insane card, the more I think that it's really not the best card in the game. It has potential to be the best card in the game if you roll the special. If you don't roll the special, well, too bad for you. But yeah, that's all I have to say for today. If you disagree with me, go ahead to comment. I think that this is a subject that a lot of people will disagree with me on, but I don't know. Hopefully at least my thoughts have made you think a little bit about them. Yeah, until next time.